This is Terms of Reference. I'm your host, Stephen Laddick. Farzeen Ferdous Alam is the founding president of AGRO, a youth-driven development organization based in Bangladesh. He started AGRO after dropping out of high school. Since that time, Farzeen has developed numerous social business models in order to transform AGRO from a fund-dependent organization into a self-sufficient one. A graduate in economics from the University of Dhaka, Farzeen is also the chairman of Ferdous Biotech Private Limited, a company that uses tissue culture to produce agriculture products for local and foreign markets. I spoke with Farzeen in Dhaka City, Bangladesh. Hi, Farzeen. Thank you so much for being on Terms of Reference today.
Hi, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here.
What is it that you do exactly with AGRO? Tell us about your role, your responsibilities, and just sort of the genesis of the NGO.
Well, I am the founding president of AGRO. I started this when I was in high school. It started off as a youth-led organization, and its work is still based on youth development. My role is to oversee the long-term strategic vision of the organization, the day-to-day executive functions of the organization, and just overall running the different projects, overseeing them. We work quite diversely and we're spread across the country, so just overseeing the different projects and the volunteers we have.
You know, you mentioned there that you had started AGRO when you were in high school. You had sort of an unusual start getting into the development business. Tell us about that. How did that happen? What was that inflection point for you?
It was basically, I come from a family where my mother has been in the development sector herself. She has an environmental organization. And so that kind of rubbed off on me when I was a little kid. And in 2005, in the summer, basically the G8 summit was taking place in Scotland. And there was a huge campaign, the Make Poverty History campaign, to write off the debt for African countries. And I was always very interested in economics well before it started in my school. And that time when the whole campaign was taking place, and I was always on the internet reading about it, and I got to know about the Millennium Development Goals. I got inspired by it. The creator of the MDGs, Dr. Jeffrey Sachs, I started reading about him. I got all his books, and I was like, okay, you know what? This is my cup of tea. It just made sense. It was like love at first sight, and that gave me the idea that, you know what, I'm pretty well versed. Even then, I had no idea about the MDGs before that. So I figured most of my generation had no idea about it. That's when the idea of starting AGRO came about, to start creating awareness about the MDGs among today's generation, get them involved in whatever capacity they have, whatever skill sets they bring in, trying to engage the youth.
But you took the choice to drop out of high school. Is that correct?
Yes. That was a very difficult decision. It had a lot to do with, when I started the organization, I realized I had to do a lot of running about and, going to other organizations, meetings, and, traveling outside the city. And I started giving my exams, my graduation exams, quite early. You can give it from the British Council. And my brother, who's kind of a mentor of mine, inspired me and gave me the confidence to go ahead. And so I pursued my education, but I dropped out of school so that I could devote more time to AGRO while continuing my education in a more of a private capacity. So it was quite risky. It could have gone wrong, but I guess, sometimes you have to take some risks.
It's sort of a very classic entrepreneur move. Something you don't hear very often in the development sector.
Yeah, and to be honest, I have to give my brother a lot of credit for that. From the society that I come from, it's a very traditional society. You have to follow certain social norms of, graduating from high school, then getting into university, finishing university, then getting into a job, establishing yourself. I completely went out of my comfort zone, and it was scary. When I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, how did I do that? But, as I said, sometimes you just have to go with your gut instincts. And for me, gut instinct is something I really, really follow.
Let's go back to this organization that you founded, some time ago. How big is it? How many people do you have working for you? How do you implement your projects out there?
Well, we have about 1,500 volunteers spread across the country in all 7 divisions of Bangladesh. It's quite a big challenge to maintain this database and engage them on a continuous basis. And to do that, I have an amazing team of 18 staff who are also quite spread about in Bangladesh across the country. Some of them are full-time and others are part-time, but all of them below the age of 28. The most senior is 28, and most of them are still in university or in high school. So that's how we do a lot of serious, development work, but our ethos is that it's all youth-driven, young people trying to tackle very, very complicated and serious issues.
Do you find that because this is a youth-led, youth-driven organization, is there a matriculation, sort of a graduation that people have when they get to a certain age? They're like, I need to move on to other professional pursuits, or?
Yeah. It's actually one of the good things about OGGRO is that it's kind of a stepping stone for a lot of young people, like a lot of young, bright people who. When they're studying in high school, they start working for us and they get a lot of experience, which matters a lot today. Whether you want to go pursue your education abroad or you want to go into the private sector, experience counts. And many of my staff actually finished their high school and then they went off to universities abroad. I've got former staffs now who are studying in Princeton or in London School of Economics, and the beautiful thing is they still they give back. They're still in touch and they do help from a more advisory capacity, and so it's a good transition for a lot of young people to have this experience. And on the other hand, there are some who've completely become absorbed with the work that we do and have taken this as their, long-term career plan. And that has led to a lot of loyalty from them, which I really appreciate. And we need that to continue, expanding and delving deeper into the challenges that we are trying to tackle.
So tell us where these 1,500 people are implementing. Is it in Dhaka or is it outside the area?
We have very minimal operations in Dhaka city. Most of our work is based across the country, targeting very remote villages and areas. And so our volunteer base is exactly in those regions. Again, Bangladesh is divided into 7 divisions, and so our volunteers are spread into that. And they are in the most they're all recruited from different schools in those villages through one of our flagship programs, which is called Youth in Action, and which we do couple of them a month. And through that, over the years, we've built up this volunteering database.
Take us a little deeper. Give us an example of the type of work that youth would do in their communities. Do you have a specific example of a project that you consider exemplary?
Well, the Youth in Action project that we have, it's basically where OGGRO acts like a donor for young people to apply for small funding. Funding can be approximately around $100 for a project. And through that, they try to solve a problem in their local community. So to give you an ideal example of this, last year, this school in North Bangladesh in Rangpur called Chandanpat School, they applied for a grant of around $80 to fix their school toilet. And I found that quite interesting, and I approved that funding and actually went to visit the project when it was being implemented, and I saw young boys and girls working together, rolling up their sleeves and fixing the toilets by themselves. They did not hire a contractor. They didn't, get anyone else to do it. They were fixing it themselves. It was like young people really doing something tangible, getting their hands dirty. And it was really inspiring. And afterwards, a couple of weeks later, I was talking to their headmaster to thank him for their support. And he told me that actually there was a multiplier effect in terms of many of the school attendance of girls actually increased subsequently, because many of the girls did not regularly go to school because the nearest toilet facilities were around half an hour walking distance. So now that there was a toilet facility available, which were, a male toilet and a female toilet, which, it apparently led to, them feeling more secured to go to school as well. So that was the beauty of this project and of Youth in Action. You try to support ideas which come from the local level, and they have multiplier effects that you can never ever imagine or contemplate sitting in your in a meeting in Dhaka City.
Sure. How did these youth figure out how to actually repair the toilet? Did they have somebody help them figure out the contracting plans or the blueprints or these kinds of things? Or?
Yeah, so part of our volunteering network is that we have different skill sets that are brought into play. So, for example, for this, they said once they wanted to fix their toilet. So we had some of our volunteers are from an engineering school, so we got in touch with them. And they actually helped to, build the whole thing. And some of them accompanied me to their site. And even a local regional construction company donated some materials. So it's, we get a lot of in-kind logistical and skill support, which, makes us more cost-effective and dynamic and efficient as well.
Now, that's great. Sort of going on the efficiency piece of that, you said that you don't implement any programs in Dhaka City. Do you have an office there? Or do you consider yourself a virtual company?
We don't have an office in Dhaka. I basically work mostly from my home. I have an office, but that is outside of Dhaka, 20 kilometers from Dhaka City. But that has to do with a lot of other work that I do. It's all of them together. But for OGGRO itself, we don't have an office in Dhaka City. We have 4 offices in the different divisions of Bangladesh, which help to implement our regional work. So in Dhaka, we pretty much work virtually. Most of the staff, they come over to my house, and we work together here. Connect up to the Wi-Fi with different laptops, and we just work from here, with a cup of coffee and rolling up our shirts, and just, it's
so
very
it's
chill.
It's a regular hack fest, it's essentially Facebook for development.
Exactly, pretty much. I mean, I've got a massive board in my room where we just, scribble whatever comes to our mind. No idea is stupid. But trust me, we have had some stupid ideas which we've kind of kept under the drawer. But it's really fun, and that's what young people love. They love the informal part of the work. We don't have to meet up all the time to have meetings. It's a quick Skype conversation. It's all about using Google Docs, sharing all the files, Dropbox. It's just making use of this technology, and that's what young people are good at. So it's just about tapping into those, and it's a lot of fun.
So how does that? You've been a funding-driven organization, or you've relied on funding for most of the history of the organization. How has that informality and that I understand the energy and the vibrancy and the innovation of the youth side. How does the informality and the virtuosity translate to a donor? How do you come off as legitimate so that they'll give you funds?
Well, in 2009, when OGGRO was still like a very young organization running off like minimum amount of costing, we basically applied for the Youth Solidarity Fund from the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, and we were one of 12 organizations from across the world that got funding from them. And that was in itself a seed funding, and that's one of the brilliant things that the UNAoC does. It helps young organizations, establish themselves, and that we capitalize that funding completely, not just for the project per se, but in terms of our organization's credibility, our stature, getting a UN backing for one of our projects, which really helped with, us being taken seriously. Because when I started off, and one of the reasons when I was in high school, if I went to see a government official to talk about some technical project or something, they would never take me seriously. They're just like, what's this kid doing around? What's he all about? And it was difficult getting to be taken seriously, but you gotta persist. And then eventually, once all the persistence eventually paid off when the UNAoC gave us that funding, and things kind of picked up from there. And to just add on to that, we are very informal and, youth-driven and energetic when we have to be, but when it comes to donors, we do bring out a more of a professional outlook. So it's like you have to adjust your identity to the situation and the individual that you're talking about. So with my staff, it's more about, informality, but when it comes to donors, we are much more serious and more formal, adhering to the traditional norms, so to speak. But also, to be fair, donor organizations nowadays, when the ones who really want to work with the youth sector, they actually kind of value the informal nature that we bring about. And we actually try to sell that to them, that is an X factor itself. And that has worked so far.
Excellent. Have you ever experienced a time when a donor said, we don't think that we can sort of trust your fund, trust putting our funds with you, or that kind of thing? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, there was this one very sensitive project that one of the things that really gets my, blood rushing through my veins is trying to target a problem that is like so difficult that you just have to do something about it. So one of them was, I was 18 years old back then, and I wanted to address this refugee problem that we have here in South Bangladesh with the Rohingyas. Rohingyas are basically from refugees from Myanmar. They're a Muslim population, and there is a mass refugee movement into Bangladesh, and they live in a camp in South Bangladesh, and I wanted to work with them and see what their problems are and how, we can support them either going back or what they want to do. But it's such a sensitive issue that you need clearance from one of our ministries here in order to enter the camp. And we weren't given that clearance because they're like, they were worried about our safety, saying that you're too young to be able to do this. This is far too complicated for you to be able to handle. This has to do with regional security and geopolitics. And that just made me even more, but the rejection actually spurred me on even more. And it's something still that I'm very passionate about, but I'm quite pragmatic in knowing that, okay, if the government's not going to allow me to work on this yet, then I just have to persist and build up our stature even more so that one day we will be able to tackle this issue, because it is a big problem.
And it's my understanding that one of the ways that you have, continued to evolve the organization is that you're moving away from a donor-funded model. Is that right?
Yes. So we started off completely as a donor-dependent organization, and a couple of years ago, we started a transition to more of a social enterprise-based model. And so we are still in a transition phase. So we are slowly moving all our projects from being donor-driven to revenue-generating models. so that they become more sustainable. And
give us an example of what that looks like. Most people are familiar. You get a grant from a organization like UNAoC, and then you implement a project. But what's implementing a social enterprise with a for-profit model? How does that work?
So that social entrepreneurship is basically, using market ideas to find solutions to development agendas, development challenges. So one of the projects that we've been working from the very beginning of our organization is called Enabling the Disabled, through which we support the education of visually impaired girls across the country. And by support, we mean, providing all their financial expenditures and school books and logistical support. So it's quite an expensive project. And we have a lot of applications that have been coming in. And it's been quite difficult to sustain this project completely being driven by donors. So we started the OGGRO stationary enterprise, which is basically we train the girls to make notebooks, the book that you use to write down in classes in schools. And we got the regional government to issue an order to all the government schools in that area to start buying those copies, those notebooks. And the business has been going really well. We are expected to break even in 2 months' time, around July to be exact. And how it works is you have an investment fund and you start, selling a product like stationery copies. And then the revenue that comes in, you pay back a part of that to the investor. And then half of the rest of it goes into the Enabling the Disabled Fund. And once the full investment amount has been returned, no further additional revenue will be given to the investor. That investor will not make any profit. He was just getting back his initial investment, after which all the excess revenue goes into the Enabling the Disabled Fund to support and expand this project. And we will be able to support even more and more girls.
Let me ask you this. Is the investment expected to be debt financing, or is it true investment where they're expecting a return, or are both those models work, or how have you experienced it?
Because this is a very new area, social entrepreneurship is something that, you're going to find a lot of conferences and a lot of workshops nowadays, that has to do with social entrepreneurship and social business. You got a lot of experts coming in, having a lot of conversations. And frankly, I got a bit sick and tired of all that. And I was like, what? We need to just start and then figure it out. So all the projects that we transformed into a social enterprise model, they've been completely, so far, been financed by myself. So I've been the investor. So we haven't gone for any loans or, being debt financed from that perspective. The reason for me investing myself is because it gives me some flexibility to tweak the projects and not to be to the changing circumstances, because we're dealing with a lot of unknown variables, and we don't want to be constrained by a lot of limitations that comes with debt financing and other forms of financing. So this gives us a lot of independence. It's also very risky from a personal point of view. But you sometimes got to put your money where your mouth is, and you just have to, start.
Well, if you would give us an example, like how much money did you put where your mouth is for the visually impaired women's program?
The initial investment was $4,800,
which is a significant amount by anybody's standard, but especially so in Bangladesh. Yes.
Yeah, it was quite a large amount, but we were thinking big picture, and so we just, we delved into it. And some of the other projects, they also needed around the same amount of investments. Some of them are working, like this project, but others are, having a bit of hiccups. And
give us an example of a hiccup.
So there is this other enterprise that I launched called the OGGRO Packaging Enterprise, which is, again, to support the Aging the Disabled projects funding, because it's a massive project that we have here. The model was pretty much similar in terms of, we trained the girls to create packets, like shopping bags and, packets for carrying food. So the training was done, and because OGGRO Stationery Enterprise was a model that has been working well, we were very energetic, and we're pretty much in a high, and we just delved right into OGGRO Packaging Enterprise without, to be honest, doing too much of an market survey. And so once we put down the investment and got into the field, turns out that there was quite a bit of competition. The market was quite saturated, and so it became quite difficult to find a segment to completely dominate. But it was a lesson that we needed to learn early so that we could fix it early, and we have been fixing it. We went back to the drawing board, and we tried to identify a region where the market was not saturated, and we've identified it, and we're actually on the process of restarting that business in this new area. And part of the learning has been that we've already secured 2 contracts from buyers of our product before we actually start launching it. So at least we know once we are in the ground restarting this business, we will immediately start getting cash inflow.
Were those contracts predicated solely upon the quality of the service, the packaging service that you'll deliver, or have you found that there is a responsiveness to the social aspect of the business from your end clients?
The quality is important. See, now that I'm into social enterprising, and I basically now run OGGRO as a simple business. I don't call it a non-profit organization. It's a business. And as such, quality matters. No matter what the backstory is.
Let me just pause you there. Does that mean that quality doesn't matter for nonprofits?
No. What I mean to say is the product's quality. When you're in a market, there is a service quality and there's a product quality. So, NGO, nonprofits, their quality is more to do with servicing and providing certain services and advice and project deliverables. So their quality is absolutely important. But when you're in a competitive market, one of the problems with nonprofits is that there is always a problem of efficiency, and we suffered from it as well. Nonprofits are so donor-driven that if donor funds stop, you're kind of stuck. And so sometimes your quality in itself also becomes a bit mashed up. But when it comes to providing something in the private sector, where you have a market where you're selling it to a customer, a product, quality is absolutely, the end game if you want to become a strong brand.
So ultimately, when you go to clients or you go to customers, you're selling the quality of the product, and the social enterprise just happens to be the backstory?
The social enterprise comes next. If you don't have a good product, then at the end of the day, that's the same with nonprofits. If you don't have a good service, then it doesn't matter what your aims and objectives and strategic overview is. So it's pretty much the opposite side of the same coin. So we go to a client and it's like, hey, we have a product which is as good as a product given by any other producer, supplier. But here's more. This product, if you buy it from us, you will get a branding, a CSR kind of branding that you are buying this product from us, which is helping visually impaired girls with their education. And you can use that information in your own marketing, and we will help you with that. So that gives us the edge compared to our competitors. So the idea is you're going to at least have parity with your competitors when it comes to quality and pricing. And then your X factor, what differentiates your product completely, is the backstory. That is social entrepreneurship.
You started as a high school dropout, and that's sort of a badge of honor for you. You've been able to grow AGRO into this dynamic, evolving social enterprise. Where does that leave you? I mean, where do you see yourself? Is this your career path? What other things are you pursuing? How what's in for Farzeen at the end of the day? You're that leader of a youth-driven organization. You're going to be a non-youth in the relatively near future. How do you continue to evolve?
Yeah, I'm dreading the non-youth part that's coming up, and but I just finished my university undergraduation degree this January.
Congratulations!
So thank you, and that was a huge accomplishment.
Then let's ask that first question. As someone who's driving social enterprise, what does someone like that get a degree in?
I got my degree in economics. Basically, I've been studying economics. It was my first love, and unlike other relationships, economics has never broken my heart. All my work, my development work, beliefs, and my social entrepreneurship principles, all of it boils down to my strict discipline in this subject, economics. And so it's like a religion to me, and I use it for everything. Whatever I do, it's something. I don't just study it. It's part of my spirituality, so to speak. And so, having finished my undergrads, I've now again taken a leave of absence from studying, because all these years, from the very beginning of OGGRO, I've always had to juggle between studies and my work. I've never been able to give priority to my work completely. So now that I'm done with undergrads, I'm going to focus for the next couple of years completely in my work, and then pursue my master's and possibly a doctorate in this field as well. So I'm hoping that's the sphere I'm talking about. It's like around 5 years. At the moment, I'm running OGGRO. Other than that, I also am the chairman of Ferdous Biotech, which is a biotechnology company, obviously, which uses tissue culture technology to produce agricultural products, which we then, supply locally, and we export as well. And also, I serve as a consultant for the Center for Social Business, where we help different corporate houses and, development organizations. We bridge them together. We try to find investment funding for other organizations from the private sector. We're also helping the private sector with their corporate social responsibility, fine-tuning them and introducing them to the idea of social entrepreneurship and how they can integrate that within their CSR model. And other than that, I also teach. I basically...
Hold on. You've just described 6 full-time jobs. Where do you find? I mean, just the accounting alone is 3 full-time jobs. Where do you find the time for all this? Is this all outsourcing? Is this all staff?
Okay, so as I was saying, I teach, and basically I teach around 160 students. It's like a private tutoring system. I have a place where I teach O-level and A-level economics, which is grade 10 and grade 11, 12 economics. And that was actually my first social entrepreneurship before I even realized it, because the revenue I used to get from that was used completely to run OGGRO. So, but then I didn't actually know that was social entrepreneurship. Now that I look back at it, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how it works. How I do all this is, again, you need a good staff. You need to be able to delegate. So in my, while I do teach and I give all the lectures personally, like I just came back from teaching 2 hours ago, the exams and paper taking, these are all done by my invigilators. So I've got a good team there. Then OGGRO has a good staff. Ferdous Biotech has a massive efficient staff as well. And then the beautiful thing is, all my deputies are all working in all of them together. So I have my main deputy is responsible for looking after Ferdous Biotech, CSB, OGGRO, and my teaching as well, my tutorship. He oversees all of that as well. So I'm trying to find out a way how I can interlink all of them into a bigger model, fit them all into one puzzle.
One conglomerate.
Conglomerate, yeah. So
it's going to become AGRO worldwide, essentially.
I don't know what it's going to be called. It's called X, but under X there are going to be a lot of entities. But the heart of all these entities would be, development. I don't know if I'm the first one to use this term or not, but I've started following a belief system where I call myself a development entrepreneur. And 20 years from now, a lot of people ask me, where do you see yourself 20 years from now? And I have a very simple answer to that, and that's I want to be the Sir Richard Branson of social entrepreneurship. I just want to see a problem, I want to see a development problem, a development challenge, and I want to find a business solution to it. And I'm going to open something for that, I'm going to start something, and I'm not very good at managing things, I'm not good at micromanaging, but I'm very good at finding a problem and finding a solution to that. From a market perspective. So that's the long-term vision. That's where I see Farzeen Ferdous Alam 20 years from now. I don't know if that's going to work. They say, God laughs at you when you make plans, but, at least you have a roadmap. It's not a bad idea. And with regards to how I find time, it's a very important question, and I get that a lot. My brother, who I keep referring to, when I was very young, he instilled this belief in me, which is we all have 24 hours in hand per day. Even like the most powerful man in the world to anyone has 24 hours. It's not about managing time so as much as managing your energy. If you can manage your energy and you can prioritize your energy accordingly, then you can get a lot of things done. So managing energy, it's very important, and that's how I try to get things done.
Just give me a couple nuts and bolts right now. So time management, staff management, project management, these kinds of things. You mentioned earlier that you like to get into a room with a bunch of your staff and throw together ideas on a whiteboard, but you also said, you use Google Docs, you use Dropbox. Are there any other specific technological or other, non-technological tools that you rely on to make AGRO function or any of the many tentacles of AGRO?
We have a couple of volunteers, who are very good in software development, and they've developed some in-house softwares for AGRO through which, we track a lot of our projects. We have a complete M&E system, which is, online driven, and all our regional team management has access to that. So that makes it much more efficient, and we can get regular M&E feedback, monitoring and evaluation feedback. So, we use technology regularly, frequently, but there is also the more standard traditional methods come handy as well. One of the things I do, it's a very simple thing but very powerful that I've noticed is every day I would randomly pick 3 or 4 numbers from my staff, like contact numbers, and I will just call them. I just dedicate half an hour of my day. Dhaka City, one of the things anyone will tell you is the traffic. You're always stuck in traffic. Mm-hmm. So what I do then is, I'm always on my phone. I use that time, at least half an hour, to just randomly talk to one of my staff in whichever project and have a conversation. And I do this every day. And that way I'm always in the loop. I know I would know what's happening in a random village with one of my volunteers. If he has an idea, what's that idea? What is he doing about it? I'm just randomly going to call people. And everyone has my number, and they're always calling me and talking to me about ideas. And if there is something that, that particularly interests me, I either make a trip down or I bring them over and we try to develop something. So communication, at the end of the day, whether you use Skype or face-to-face or the telephone, communication is a very big part of, making sure things get done.
How important is Bangladesh to your success? Given the fact that you are, you're part of the culture, you have your network, those kinds of things. Do you think that I could take Farzeen and, put you down in the middle of, South Africa, and you'd be as successful? How much is context important to your success and the success of your social enterprise right now?
I think a lot, because I do see myself in terms of, having grown up here and having spent a lot of my time thinking about our culture here and how we do things and how development work takes place here. I think it had a massive influence in how I work. And the focus on efficiency is that much more important to me because generally things are very inefficient here. And that had a massive influence. And has always been one of my biggest challenges. How do we make things efficient? But having said that, now, if I am to, start with all this knowledge that I've acquired, not that I'm saying I've acquired all the knowledge, I'm learning every day. It's one of the best things about this job. But so if I'm sent to South Africa, knowing that everything's being taken care of here for the time being, I'm going to take that jump. I'm going to start again in South Africa, and it's going to be quite a bit of challenge. But I still believe if you have the right intentions, if you have the right mind frame, then no matter what context you're in, you can figure something out. You just have to persist. And that's true for anything that you do. It can be development, it can be music, whatever it is, whatever context there is. If you persist with an idea, with a belief system, it'll get you somewhere at some point. But in what I've seen is many people don't get to that somewhere, to that some point, because we tend to lose hope, we tend to lose the long-term vision, and sometimes we take the easy way out. And it's understandable in certain circumstances. Things can get difficult, and so you may have to take another route. But if you have the option of sticking to something, then you should. And that I believe, whether you put me in South Africa or Mars, I think I can bring that much. Given you give me enough oxygen, I will be able to stick to it.
Farzeen, final question. You are delightfully entrepreneurial. You have experienced and enjoyed success clearly, and you have been celebrated by these agencies that give you funding and the awards that you've received from the MTV Foundation, etc. What advice would you give to someone, and you have 1,500 of them that you talk to every day, who are interested in working in humanitarian aid and development? Maybe not even in Bangladesh, maybe in other places, India, Nepal, around your region. What's the first steps that they take?
First step they have to take is have a dream. You need to know what you're passionate about. And then when you have that passion, when you have that overall long-term dream, start small. Don't try to change everything in one day, because then you won't be able to, and then you're going to get demotivated. So have that dream. Have a big dream. Have a dream like, I am going to make sure that every person in this world has safe drinking water. That's a brilliant, inspirational dream. But then you start with your local community. Make sure everyone in your local community has safe drinking water. That's take number one. And then you can expand. Then you can grow bigger. But so, start in your local areas. Try to change things there. Get equipped with the knowledge, and never ever think you're not smart enough. Don't think academic knowledge is everything. Some of the most successful people in the world are university dropouts. Some of the most dynamic people never have, they don't use academic, knowledge and technicalities in their day-to-day work. you have to have that street smartness in you to be able to, just roll up your sleeves and just get things done. No, I'm not telling you young people shouldn't be studying. Go ahead, study, get the knowledge, but don't think that knowledge is everything. Don't think that having a certificate from a very good university is all that there is to, that has made you an expert. Being an expert means you have that certificate, and then you're using that by going to a random village and getting your hands dirty and using your knowledge to fix something there. That's a true development worker. So you have to have that humility, you have to have that passion, that flexibility to be able to do that, and always listen. It's so easy to always talk, hey, I've got a good idea, I've got this, hey, people, listen to me. It's very easy, but the biggest lessons you will learn is by listening.
Farzeen, thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to Terms of Reference, a weekly podcast from aidpreneur.com. Find us on iTunes or at www.aidpreneur.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.